Chapter 1290. Try what? The things described in the books? Even a gangster like Bo Gio couldn't help blushing at the thought of that scene. Besides, the Almighty's hand was still holding onto her waist. He didn't seem to have any intention of letting go. Instead, he peeled off her shirt, dragged her back, and kissed her. She couldn't see anything clearly. Even the bathtub was filled with white foam. Through the thick heat, the fog seemed to be able to reach her eyes. The scene under the light was beautiful. It was probably because they were both so good-looking that the air was even hotter. At this moment, Qin Mo was like a dark noble that appeared in stories. Anyone who liked British movies would know. Handsome vampire nobles loved to drag young ladies into the bathtub and give them the pleasure they had never experienced before. Qin Mo was doing the same thing. However, he didn't bite her throat. Instead, he planted multiple kisses on her collarbone before moving downwards. It was so tempting that it made her soul tremble. Bo Gio didn't know when her jeans had disappeared. Her overly long shirt reached her thighs and floated in the water like flower petals. Her fair and translucent shoulders were snow-white under the light. It was easy to arouse one's thoughts. From the start to the end, Qin Mo hugged her waist tightly, never letting her leave his arms. When he saw this scene, his gaze deepened, and he bit her shoulder. His breathing also became a little unstable, especially when he heard the moans coming from the person in his embrace. He could not help but gasp. If it wasn't for a voice reminding him, he couldn't continue. How could he allow his prey to control his thoughts? As a guide, the person who should be grasped should be the other party. But it was this person's every even the way she looked at him with tears in her eyes, that made him want to have her completely at that moment. He felt inexplicably irritated. Qin Mo took a deep breath and retracted his hand. Then, he pulled the towel and wrapped her up. He couldn't come into contact with her for now. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to control himself. Was the feeling of her skin too good, or was she really like a siren? She looked at you clearly, but it made you want to destroy her. Bo Gio didn't know why the Almighty was suddenly awake. There was a splash of water. By the time she reacted, her head was already covered by a white towel. You can wash the rest yourself. I'll get you a glass of milk. My sugar daddy, you still need to nourish yourself. You'll feel better when you're chubbier. Bo Gio. Grandpa Butler said he was pretending to be too gentle. How was this gentle? Wasn't his tongue just as venomous? The Almighty would probably feel uncomfortable if he didn't have a sharp tongue for a day. Especially when it came to speaking ill of her. Bo Gio pressed the towel over her head with one hand. Suddenly, she broke into a smile. Did he think that she couldn't tell? Every time he flirted with her until she couldn't take it anymore, he would suddenly stop. It seemed that he didn't want her. Bo Gio smiled again, a devilish glint in her eyes. There was one thing that the Almighty seemed to have gotten wrong. Should he tell her about it? He didn't have the final say. Whoosh. Chapter 1291. There were still water droplets on her jade-white ankles. Her back was wrapped in a towel. Her entire body was covered in water, glowing under the sunlight. Her eyes were as black as the fog. Indeed, she looked like a siren. Especially when she smiled, the corners of her lips curved slightly. She walked tall and straight, exuding an extreme sense of beauty. She didn't seem embarrassed because of her appearance. Bo Gio touched her cheeks, looking suave. She had originally planned to pounce on him and get it over with. Who knew that before she could do anything, that person would pull her into his arms again. Wrapped around her was a dry towel. Even her eyes were wrapped in it. Brother Mo, Bo Gio felt that the Almighty wasn't fighting fair. She couldn't even see. How was she supposed to attack? Qin Mo watched as the little hooligan tried to act cool after being drenched. Now she looked like an exasperated kitten, stretching out her claws in an attempt to act coquettishly. MMH? He arched a brow, pressing her head onto his shoulder. Bo Gio finally calmed down. She realized that the towel wasn't just around her. There were two of them. The Almighty was also wrapped inside. She was in direct contact with his skin. That was how it should be. Why was he trying to distance himself from her? Bo Gio's eyes turned into crescents, her hands about to move. What are you trying to do? Qin Mo freed one hand, pressing down on her restless claws. He arched a brow, finding it funny. It seems like my sugar daddy likes me a lot. Bojio lifted her head, looking at Qin Mo with a wicked smile. That's right, that's right. Even if you like me, you can't touch me. Qin Mo adjusted her, looking as though he was taking care of a domestic prey. Turn around and look at the mirror. Bojio arched a brow. What am I doing? Blow your hair. She had to do something that wouldn't let her imagination run wild to divert her attention. Hence, the Almighty came out with a hairdryer. He raised one hand high, his aura strong. Bojio took a moment. She couldn't force him. It wouldn't be good to bully the Almighty when he lost his memory. All right, blow your hair. When she turned around, her entire back was leaning against his chest. The two of them were wrapped in the same towel. It was neither too big nor too small. Just perfect. Even the Almighty wouldn't be able to take advantage of them in such a position. When Qin Mo heard her sigh, he laughed again. Why? Are you disappointed that I blew your hair? What bad things are you thinking about all day long? I want to sleep with you. Bojio felt the gentle breeze blowing over her head. She smiled brightly. It's so obvious. Brother Mo, can't you tell? Qin Mo looked at that face and couldn't help but reach out to pinch it. I'm very expensive. Let's dry your silver hair first. Silver hair. Bojio tilted her head. The most popular granny gray. It's quite handsome. Isn't it handsome? Qin Mo met her clear eyes. The tear mole was especially obvious. Her nose, mouth, and even her collarbone were beautiful. His body moved, bending down to kiss her lips. His eyes were deep. You're really pretty. Until now, she was the most pleasing prey he had ever seen. Not as pretty as you. Bojio's words were true. Little Princess Qin had been pretty since she was young. Qin Mo ran his fingers through the youngster's hair slowly. The hairdryer was still blowing gently. Are you sure you want to use the word pretty to describe me? No man would like to have such an adjective on him. Devastatingly beautiful? Bojio thought about the idiom she had learned. Qin Mo arched a brow. Femme fatale? These 4 words should fit the description, right? Qin Mo laughed and said slowly, Why don't you say I'm Daji who bewitches the nation? How can you be compared to Daji? Bojio laughed. You're much prettier than Daji. Since you're so comfortable to hug, I won't throw you out the window. Qin Mo had just thought of this when the youngster continued. Brother Mo, I'm definitely an incapable ruler in ancient times. If you're Daji and you want to bewitch the nation, I'll definitely let you do it. Don't you think I'm too rash? If others say bad things about you, I'll want to beat them up. No wonder you always said I was rash when I was young. I'm quite rash. When Qin Mo heard this, he turned off the hairdryer and tapped her face rhythmically with his fingers. I don't think you're rash at all. Every word she said seemed to be able to seep into her heart. She was so cunning. I'm still rash. For example, I really want to sleep with you. Bojio tilted her head, her tone lazy. So, Brother Mo, if I were to touch you, you have to stop me. I can't stand seduction. You can use it on me more often. Qin Mo laughed softly. He wasn't pretending anymore. He placed the hairdryer aside, his aura a little distant. You can even tell that I'm using seduction? It's a pity you didn't use it all the way. Bojio laughed lightly and sneezed. You didn't even let me have a taste of the sweetness. Qin Mo glanced at the person in front of him and frowned. Then he lifted his arms and carried her horizontally. He walked into the room and stuffed her into the blanket. Ah! Bojio exclaimed. You're covering me so much, it's too heavy. There was only a blanket between them. After removing it, he didn't even let her have a taste of the tofu. Where's the medicine? Qin Mo didn't answer her question. Bojio was pressed down and couldn't move. What medicine? Flu medicine, Qin Mo replied, pressing the person who was about to pop her head back in. Bojio suddenly understood. The Almighty was concerned about her sneeze and thought she was sick again. Was that why he was looking for medicine? In the end, she managed to get a taste of the sweetness. Bojio only revealed a pair of eyes. Under the blanket, her lips were curved into a smile. Qin Mo tilted his head. When he saw this scene, he knew he had overreacted. His fingers paused for a moment before he sat by the bed, smiling nonchalantly. Are you proud? No, actually, I'm feeling a little cold and uncomfortable. It must be from the bath just now. Bo Jiu pressed her head to make herself look more sincere. Qin Mo's smile deepened. Cold. Then add another quilt. The Almighty was a man of his words. He pulled open the wardrobe and retrieved a summer blanket, placing it over her body. Are you warmer now? What else could she say? This was her act and she had to finish it. I'm just a little thirsty. Drinking water would cool her down. Qin Mo arched a brow. Thirsty? I'll get you a cup of hot water. How about that? Hot water? Bo Jiu waved her hands. Forget it. I'm not that thirsty. Since the Almighty was so black-bellied, he might as well continue to seduce her. Chapter 1292. The Almighty was still smiling when he said this, his breath landing beside her ear. It was slightly seductive. Bo Jiu tilted her head. Ice and fire, hot and cold at the same time. It's not good for my body if this continues. Qin Mo stilled, not expecting such an answer. His thin lips landed on her forehead. What about now? It's hot. Bo Jiu smiled. Brother Mo, I just ate a piece of candy. Do you want a kiss? I guarantee it'll be sweet. Qin Mo removed a layer of the blanket. After hearing her words, he arched a brow lazily. In your dreams, little gangster. Sleeping on the same bed without a kiss is the real gangster. Bo Jiu took a deep breath, her pale face tinged with a tinge of red. She wanted to kick the blanket away. The moment she moved, Qin Mo pressed down on her legs, his voice deep. Do you want to catch a cold? The blanket is thick. Bo Jiu didn't want to hug him through the blanket as it would be too distant. Qin Mo glanced at her rascally look. Do you regret exposing my honey trap? Yes. Bo Jiu watched as he reached out to pull her over and changed the blanket. The weight on her body was light but the temperature was comfortable. She took the opportunity to hug his waist. Qin Mo didn't reject her but he pointed at a certain prey. Don't move your hands. It's a little difficult, Bo Jiu replied seriously. Why don't I play for a while? With both hands, I'll be able to maintain some self-control. Qin Mo replied, his emotions indiscernible. Bo Jiu knew he had seen through her probing. She took the phone over and thought for a moment. Brother Mo. What? Qin Mo leaned against the headboard, his fingers twirling a poker card. Bo Jiu tilted her head. Do you want to take a look at your official Weibo account? You want me to take a look? Qin Mo's gaze deepened when he asked this. Bo Jiu nodded. I want you to know there are many people waiting for you. Qin Mo didn't say anything. He emptied one hand, his expression nonchalant. It didn't matter if he took a look or not. He wasn't interested in the past. But from the looks of it, she wanted him to take a look. Qin Mo's breath turned cold. Well, no one would like the current him. It was probably the same for her. Qin Mo lifted his thin lips, his eyes cold. Phone. Bo Jiu moved her fingers and turned off the screen. Forget it. Qin Mo's expression was noble. If you don't like it, then don't. Bo Jiu laughed. It doesn't matter if I lose my memory or not. It's better this way. No one will snatch it from me. Qin Mo's gaze trembled, but he quickly regained his composure. He said slowly, then you have to watch over me. I will, Bo Jiu replied, gripping the phone in her hands. Qin Mo glanced over. Aren't we going to play games? I thought you didn't like it? I'm not fighting anymore. Bo Jiu pressed the tip of her tongue against her cheek. Qin Mo tapped on her phone screen. If you like it, I'll watch you play. That way, you won't be up to no good. Bo Jiu arched a brow. Brother Mo, if you don't say the last sentence, Sugar Daddy will like you more. That's a pity. The last sentence is what I really mean. Qin Mo patted her face lightly, his voice lazy and pleasant. Let's start. Let me see how you play. Chapter 1293. The game's music started playing. This was the first time Qin Mo found someone so thick-skinned and likable. But it was understandable. A domestic prey would definitely be pleasing to the eye. At this moment, Bo Jio entered the page and chose her character. She was using an alternate account so her level wasn't eye-catching. But the name. Qin Mo arched a brow. Little sweetheart Qin is mine? Bo Jio's scalp turned numb. Brother Mo, don't mind the details. Why would I? You're my sugar daddy after all. Qin Mo leaned over and bit her ear. Bo Jio trembled, the tips of her ears turning red. Qin Mo was satisfied, his gaze returning to the screen. There's someone talking on the screen. Bo Jio saw it too. It was someone fighting for a position in the wilderness. She didn't allow it. That person was obviously unhappy. He didn't switch and continued to drag it out. It wasn't good for development to play with a temper. Bo Jio knew that and didn't say much since it was common sense to fight for money before capturing the person. But her teammate was still talking. The one playing as an assassin, look at my level and look at yours. Can't you tell I'm 2 levels higher than you? Why are you trying to snatch it from me? Let me tell you, don't scam me or I'll complain about you. Qin Mo's eyes dimmed as he listened to the words that came from the phone. His initial disinterest turned to one person. What is he doing? That was when Bo Jio realized that the Almighty had really lost his memory. He was just like a new person. He's farming. Assassins have to farm beasts to raise their finances or they won't be able to develop. Every assassin has to think of a way to get to level 4 as soon as possible, and the most effective way is to farm beasts. Hearing this, Qin Mo smiled, reached out his hand, and asked her to change her route. What is it? Bo Jio was confused. What was the Almighty up to? Qin Mo tapped the screen. I'm playing. You know how to play. Bo Jio's eyes shone with surprise. Qin Mo replied faintly. No, I saw what you did just now. There's a button that allows you to farm beasts. That was right. But Bo Jio watched as the Almighty stood motionless in the bushes, waiting for someone to farm beasts. What was he doing? Very quickly, Bo Jio understood his intentions. That was because the voice of their jungler rang out again. F***CK, I've been farming for half a day. Next, that person realized that no matter if it was blue, red, or any other small monster, they would all be accurately snatched away at the last slash. He was thoroughly cursing over there. Bo Jio watched as the Almighty lifted his fingers slightly and pressed the voice button on his phone, continuing with his job of snatching kills. I'm hanging up. F***CK. This time he typed. His teammates were helpless. All they wanted was for that high-ranked player to play well. That person snorted and split the message into 3 parts. Tell that little sweetheart Qin to stop stealing my beasts, and I'll go out. With that kind of positioning, what else can he do other than steal my wild beasts? Anyone can kill him. Bo Jio glanced over and reached for her phone. She typed a few words. You don't want to come out? Then don't come out. As soon as she finished speaking, she controlled the game character in her hand. Like a cold gust of wind, she swept towards the wilderness on the other side. Her clothes fluttered, and even her sword glowed with a white light. You're courting death, the assassin said. Chapter 1294. Double kill. Double kill. Double kill? How could it be a double kill? The assassin who had been yelling just a moment ago suddenly froze. He looked at the screen. After the kill, the elegant figure used a skill and leaped back to his original position. This caused the enemy sorcerer to chase after him. That person didn't return to the tower. Instead, he hid in the bushes after collecting a wave of soldiers. At this moment, he had recovered to half his HP. On the map, that person leaped out. The sorcerer saw this and quickly attacked. However, that person dodged the freeze with a zigzag movement. Then, the sound of Sword God rang out. It was very rhythmic. Once, twice, thrice. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Triple kill. Triple kill. It was continuous, without a break. Even the time couldn't be measured in minutes because it was too fast. The team members were still reviving in the spring. Looking at the scene on the map, everyone was stunned. The enemy sorcerer who died even typed a string of words on the public chat. She probably didn't expect to be killed. After all, she was at full HP. And she remembered that the opponent was at low HP. Vampiric knife. This person used a vampiric knife? He used it so early. How confident was he in his fighting style? His teammates glanced at each other. Before they could even react, Yi Chen had already left. The game's music blared again. Tyrant has been killed. The entire team's experience has doubled. The first to react wasn't his teammates but the enemy assassin. Ah! I've been fighting Tyrant for half a day. However, just as he was typing, what he didn't expect was that after killing 2 monsters, the white figure leaped back and aimed an electrode at his back, followed by a big move. He jumped back in fright and returned to the city with low HP. That scared me. I almost died. I remember that the jungler isn't high level. The high level one is the other one. Why is he so fierce? I don't even dare to leave the tower. Me too. What kind of maneuver is that? It's unbelievable. Compared to the opponent's panic. On the other side, the assassin who was yelling that he wouldn't go out unless he was allowed to have fun turned red and white. He pressed on his phone. You're not a substitute player, are you? Bojo didn't bother about him. She cleared her own jungle in a few moments. She didn't just clear her own jungle. When she plundered the opponent's jungle, she would definitely take some wild boars with her. She successfully explained the phrase, "Your jungle is my home." She didn't snatch the title of Pig Hierarch for nothing. His DPS was the highest in the entire game. Wherever he went, he would either take away a player's head or a wild monster. It wasn't that the opponent didn't want to chase after her, but the hero she was controlling was too agile and fast. If they went after him alone, they would definitely be killed in seconds. When the 3 of them chased after him, he ran away. It was as if he was walking someone. After walking them for a while, he attacked them from behind and dealt a set of damage. In the blink of an eye, their long-ranged ADC was crippled. A score of 0-6 was going against the wind. In the middle of the game, when the opponent saw Bojio's figure on the screen, he didn't even dare to come out. The saddest thing was that without control, it wasn't safe to stand under the tower alone. The white figure was so fierce that he could cross the tower and kill. Moreover, his HP recovered extremely quickly. This wasn't fun at all. Chapter 1295. Those who played this game would usually want to score higher. Besides, everyone knew that a skilled jungler could bring up the tempo of the match. It wasn't easy to find such a god. Before it was over, someone started to send a message. Jungler little brother, why don't you add me as a friend? I'm so cute. Can't you stop killing me and help me score higher? Under normal circumstances, Bojo wouldn't look at the public chat. But today, Chin Mo was here and he would look. When he saw the message, Chin Mo broke into a smile. It was a beautiful smile but there was a hint of coldness in his lips. Is she flirting with you? MMH? Bojo finally noticed the next sentence, freeing her hand to reply. Not little brother. The other side continued to act coquettishly. What is he if not little brother? Uncle? Uncle is good too. Uncle is more charming, moi. It's little sister. The moment Bojo finished typing, she was once again distracted by the Almighty. He hugged her with one hand and tapped on her phone with the other. This time, the Almighty's target was clear. He laughed nonchalantly. Just kill her. Bojo. That wasn't a good way to treat a girl, right? The Almighty probably didn't know how fierce she was when she grabbed someone. What is it? Chin Mo smiled faintly at her face, his fingers tapping against hers, bringing a wave of numbness. Are you really going to have tender feelings for the fairer sex? He paused, as though he knew what Bojo liked. Send her back to the city. There will be a reward. The Almighty's last sentence was too tempting. She would send the coquettish one back to the city. Bojo lifted her sword. While everyone was still immersed in the words "its little sister," she leaped over and killed the confused sorcerer in the middle lane. The moment the sorcerer saw that he was dead, he typed, F***CK. The next moment, the other side burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, who asked you to pretend to be a girl? You're screwed this time. Frequent surfers would know that there was a popular saying in the game. If you realized your opponent was good at jungling, pretend to be a girl and act coquettishly. 90% of the time you would be able to avoid death. That mage had been playing this trick for a long time, and it was a tried and tested move. That was how unlucky he was today. Soon, he realized a problem. The worst part was that he had just died. Rather, wherever he went. That jungler followed them wherever they went. They didn't even care about the big picture, just to kill him. The male magician was dumbfounded. Unless he didn't step out of the house, he would definitely die if he did. What kind of grudge? He typed on the public chat, "Handsome Missy, you don't have to go so far, right? I was just acting coquettishly, but you caught me so tightly that I have nothing left to live for." Wuxia arched a brow when she read the message. The Almighty told her not to reply and to continue killing. She didn't agree to this. Instead, she stopped and typed out a string of words. "My boyfriend saw you acting coquettishly just now. He's watching me right now. He's jealous. I have to think of a way to make him happy." A string of dots and dots appeared on the public screen. It wasn't uncommon to see people flaunting their affection in games. But in the past, they had never been abused like this. But today, in order to make her boyfriend happy, a girl kept catching people? To be honest, these big men were really abused. Chapter 1297. Feng Yi had actually told them during the meeting not to reply to any comments on the internet, be it good or bad. He had even set a limit on their internet usage. He was worried that their mental state would be affected. In the esports industry, there were too many people who didn't understand. From the disdain in the past to now, there were finally people who wouldn't say that it was just a gamer. Countless people were putting in hard work. There were also people who found substitutes to do live broadcasts. In order to earn money, they formed a model to please the fans. The fans were the father. As time went by, more and more people felt that they had the right to decide what the team should be like. However, some people seemed to have forgotten. This was esports. On the competitive stage, ability was the final word. People in the industry, when they first came into contact with this industry, they didn't see much potential in it. The reason was simple. They loved it. Perhaps it was hard for girls to understand that feeling. Sitting in a dormitory, pushing the opponent's city, playing games until midnight, kicking their friend's chair, taking out their phone to order takeout, chewing on a chicken wing to start another round. Days like this would never come again after they left school. Hence they cherished it. Similarly, they hoped that the team that appeared in their youth could go further. They understood what it meant to support them. To buy a ticket and watch them compete unscrupulously like before, winning and even winning for the country. Not like now, where they fell into anxiety again and again. Every time, it was because of some people's love. Was there psychological pressure? Esports players didn't just have psychological pressure. In terms of training hours and computer time, no one could beat them. Simple office workers or students. At most, they would be scolded by their superiors. As for them, they would be attacked by everyone on the internet. They couldn't retaliate. The most they could do was say that they had low standards. Probably no one would care about the lifespan of the industry. Take Yin Wuyao for example. No one knew why he liked to smoke. It could relieve his fatigue and prevent him from worrying too much about his neck. The back of his neck really hurt. When the training was intense, he would sit in front of the computer for 8 to 9 hours. He was also worried that he wouldn't play well during the competition. When the pressure was high, the quality of his sleep was extremely poor. Even now, he would doze off in the day, giving off a feeling that he couldn't wake up. Many people said that it was the aura of the Almighties. He was so lazy that he looked like an otherworldly expert. In fact, they were really sleepy and wanted to sleep whenever they had the time. They had to adjust their mentality by themselves. Lin Feng had originally thought that he would be reprimanded after his rebuttal, so he was prepared. After all, Feng Yi had also called. But this time, for some reason, the voice was different from before. "Did you see CEO Qin? We were supposed to meet today, but Little Spade told us to wait until tomorrow." Lin Feng might be naive, but he could tell from his tone. "Fox Feng, have you been hiding something from us recently?" Feng Yi was still sitting on the office chair. He leaned back and said, "There is one thing, but I wasn't sure before. Now I have a feeling." Lin Feng. Chapter 1298. What do you mean? Fox Feng, are you joking? Even if Captain retires, he would still be better than us. Lin Feng was extremely anxious. To a certain extent, Feng Yi knew every member of Supreme Alliance. Lin Feng was a naive person. The more anxious he was, the more uneasy he was. Feng Yi reached out to press between his brows. There will always be special circumstances. Is Captain's hand completely failing? Lin Feng took 2 steps forward with the phone in his hand. That's fine, as long as Captain watches over us when we play. Actually, I don't agree with Captain playing again. The doctor once said that his hand isn't suitable for gaming, so this is a good chance. Lin Feng spoke more and more. In the end, he raised his hand and ruffled his hair fiercely, his voice wilting. Fox Feng, what exactly happened to Captain? Feng Yi knew he was mentally prepared. Amnesia. He forgot everything, including games and... With that he paused, adding, "We." The word "we" seemed to have hit Lin Feng's head. He stilled, his eyes turning red. That's why Little Spade brought him back. It's confidential, I don't know the details. Feng Yi tilted his head and lit a cigarette, his voice slow. But fortunately, he wasn't alone. He knew a little about what had happened 3 years ago. It was the same for Lin Feng and the others. That person came back with a hand injury and a high fever, just to be able to make it for the competition. But there were some things that could be missed. What they couldn't forget was the injury on his shoulder. When he changed the bandage, even the ignorant could tell it was a gunshot wound. What did he do when he wasn't around? They weren't sure. But every time he came back, there would be news a few days later about which case had been solved and which overseas compatriots had been sent back safely. Once, twice, thrice. After many times, it would no longer be a coincidence. Others might not know. He, Yun Hu, and Lin Feng all had some connections in their families. Furthermore, they had both lived in the same courtyard. It wasn't like they didn't know the connection between them. Feng Yi didn't hold back. Some people would reject their previous lives after losing their memories. Actually, I wasn't the first person to realize that young Master Qin had forgotten how to play games. It was Little Spade. She just sent me a message, so you can be prepared when you meet tomorrow. There's nothing to prepare. Lin Feng stood up, his voice unusually serious. Supreme Alliance's captain will only be Qin Mo. Even if he doesn't know how to game anymore, he will still be our god. No one can replace his position. Feng Yi smiled. Then prepare for tomorrow's meeting. Tell them that you guys should get together before the competition. What about the matter on the internet? Lin Feng coughed lightly. Feng Yi's gaze deepened. I'll handle the public relations and give you a satisfactory answer. From a certain perspective, Feng Yi was also very protective. However, everyone was clear about this. After knowing this, no one would feel good in their hearts. Lying on the bed, Lin Feng was still thinking about how Little Spade must have felt when she was the first to find out. Chapter 1299. Was it painful? Bo Jiu didn't know how it felt. She watched as he took the phone like a new player, not even familiar with the map. Not to mention, he moved slowly and even knocked into the wall. Once upon a time, she had made a vow. She would never let him fall from his pedestal. She could still remember him dressed in white, wielding a long sword. With a wave of his sleeves, he could take away a drop of blood. Even now, there were still videos of his games on the major websites. Be it his movement or his technique, they were all like textbook existences. Only on the map of Hero could he come and go as he pleased, as elegant as the wind. The repeated 3,000 knife cuts and the 5 consecutive kills. It was like a brand. The moment Bo Jiu closed her eyes, she would remember it. That was why she reacted that way when she saw the assassin mocking the Almighty's movement. Those people would never understand. What kind of existence was he? Bo Jiu didn't feel terrible, but her heart ached. She just wanted to make her little Princess Qin happy. She could do anything. Moreover, it was just catching people in the game. She glanced at the Almighty, interested, and started the second round. Bo Jiu understood as she played. The Almighty's interest was to create trouble for her. For example, when she was killing the blue beast, he would point his finger over and control the character to retreat. Her previous attacks would be in vain. She wouldn't have enough aggro and would have to pull the monster again. When she killed someone, the Almighty never stopped her. He would even laugh softly beside her ear. So sinister? It's all thanks to Brother Mo's teachings. Bo Jiao liked to hide in the bushes. She had learned it from the Almighty. Qin Mo placed his chin on her shoulder, listening to the main point. I taught you the game? Partly. Bo Jiao's eyes lit up. How about this? I'll tell you how you chased me. Qin Mo arched a brow, his voice lazy. I chased you? Of course I can't be the one who chased you, I'm a girl. Bo Jiao didn't look at Qin Mo when she said this. The little gangster had her guilty moments too. Qin Mo chuckled, leaning over and kissing her ears. I'm glad my sugar daddy still remembers she's a girl. Bo Jiao. Then how did I chase you? The enthusiasm of a prey couldn't be dispelled, especially when it was kept at home. Qin Mo felt her warmth, his lips curved slightly. Chapter 1300. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first? Qin Mo repeated these words, reaching out lazily to turn off her phone. It sounds like you're the only one who thinks it. Bo Jiao glanced over. All right, regardless of whether you have such intentions, I do. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Is that the reason you joined the team? Qin Mo asked nonchalantly. Bo Jiao replied seriously, I was bewitched by Brother Mo's beauty and couldn't help myself. I even signed a contract to sell myself for 3 years. Brother Mo is the legal representative of the team. That means I'm the sugar daddy. Qin Mo chuckled, the corners of his lips lifting as he watched the person in his arms. Bo Jiao finally understood what it meant to say too much was bound to slip up. She started to change the topic. That's not it. I'm definitely richer than you. I entered the team to sleep with you. Oh? Was it an employee sleeping with the boss? Or was it a member sleeping with the captain? Qin Mo asked with a smile on his face. Bo Jiao knew she wouldn't be able to get anything out of this conversation. Hence, she reached for her phone and prepared to play another round. The man was looking at her from behind, but his posture didn't change. He was still holding her in his arms. Why aren't you killing beasts? It hasn't refreshed yet. It's been less than 10 seconds. I forgot. It refreshed 120 seconds after the kill. It's out now. Bo Jiao paused, glancing up. How did you know? Did he remember? Or did he remember? Is it difficult? Qin Mo tapped the screen. After watching you play so many rounds, it's easy to come up with a conclusion. Bo Jiao had forgotten that even though the Almighty had lost his memory, he was still a genius, especially as a psychologist. No one could compare to him in terms of memory. How long can my blue energy last? 90. How long will the Tyrant King fall into darkness? 10 minutes after the start of the game. Bo Jiao's eyes lit up. How long will my big move take to recover? Are you testing me? Or do you want me to get familiar with the game? Qin Mo looked at the person in his arms and smiled, but the warmth in his eyes dimmed. I'm not someone who likes to play games. I liked to play games in the past, but that doesn't mean I like it now. Bo Jiao glanced up, noticing his slight impatience. She switched off her phone. I won't play if you don't like it. I thought you liked it since you were so excited about messing with me. That's because you're playing, Qin Mo said suddenly. Both of them were stunned. Qin Mo frowned. Bo Jiao couldn't stop herself from laughing. Qin Mo leaned forward. Very proud. That's right. Bo Jiao's eyes lit up. Brother Mo, does this mean that you like me a little? Qin Mo's voice was calm and he laughed. You are my sugar daddy. How can I not like you? He was pretending to be gentle again. What else could Bo Jiao say? As long as you like it. On the other hand, Qin Mo's eyes deepened as though he was still wondering why he had blurted out such a sentence. However, there was nothing wrong with playing with domesticated prey. She was likable after all. But there was one thing. She didn't know if it was because he didn't allow her to play games. She followed him wherever he went, even when he went to the bathroom, like a little tail. Chapter 1301. Nothing much. I just wanted to ask where my reward is. Bojo hadn't forgotten what the Almighty had said. As long as she destroyed the sorcerer, there would be a reward. Qin Mo arched a brow in amusement. She had followed him all the way just for a reward? Wasn't she childish? Bojo pouted when he didn't reply. Are you trying to fool me? Close your eyes. Qin Mo reached out and tapped on her frown. Was she throwing a tantrum? Bojo broke into a smile and closed her eyes obediently. It wasn't easy to get a kiss these days. To match the Almighty's height, she even tiptoed. Qin Mo watched her actions and couldn't help but smile. He placed the things in his hands into her pants pocket and said nonchalantly, "It's done." Done? Bojo opened her eyes. He hadn't even touched her. How was it done? Aren't you going to kiss me? Bojo asked, disappointment evident on her face. Qin Mo asked, "What's going on in your head?" "Didn't I say it before?" Bojo replied innocently. Qin Mo was reminded of the answer she had given him. 2 words. Sleep with him. Was he that easy to sleep with? Qin Mo didn't look at her face and pretended to take the thing back. "Since that's the case, you probably don't want the reward I gave you." "Who said I don't want it?" "Brother Mo, how can I take back the reward I gave you?" Bojo blocked him with one hand and pressed her other hand into her pocket. That was when she realized what it was. It was a round piece wrapped in a beautiful packaging. A chocolate-flavored milk candy? Bojo paused. She was suddenly reminded of how he had been like this in the military. Regardless of the time, he would always have a piece of candy in his pocket. It was because she liked to eat it. Qin Mo frowned when he saw the person in front of him not moving. What did she mean? She didn't like it. That shouldn't be possible. From his observation, this girl really liked to eat sweets, and among all the sweets, this was her favorite flavor. But why was she looking like that? Qin Mo stuffed one hand into his pocket when he didn't see the smile or the hug he had expected. His mood didn't change, but he shouldn't have asked that question. "Why? You don't like it?" When she heard the familiar voice, Bojo snapped out of her reverie. She tightened her grip on the candy, her eyes turning into crescent moons. "I like it a lot." Qin Mo glanced at her. "You like it very much?" However, he didn't seem surprised at all. Instead, he seemed to be reminiscing about something. Qin Mo tilted his head, his stray hair perfectly covering his eyes. "As long as you like it." What this person said and what she thought were not the same. But it was normal. Usually, people would miss their lovers when they didn't lose their memories. With this in mind, Qin Mo lifted the corners of his lips slightly. Even though he was smiling, there wasn't any warmth in it. Of course, Bojo wouldn't be able to detect his presence. He would only hold her waist in bed and harshly bully her. Only when she begged for mercy would he kiss the corner of her eyes. He would not go to the last step. Chapter 1302. The sentence had probably left a deep impression on her. The next day, when she woke up, Bojo was still by his side. "Brother Mo, did you talk to me yesterday?" Bojo followed him and asked, "Brother Mo, did you talk to me yesterday?" "Talk." Qin Mo stood by the side of the bed, buttoning his shirt casually. When he heard her words, his well-defined fingers paused in the halo. They were so white that they were almost transparent. "What did you say?" Bojo watched the lazy expression on his face and frowned when she heard his question. Was she muddle-headed from sleep? "You said you're the one beside me now." Qin Mo smiled. "Would I say something like that?" "Indeed, it doesn't seem like something you would say." Other than his poisonous tongue, the Almighty didn't have any sweet nothings. Bojo stood up, stepping onto the floor barefooted. Perhaps she really was muddle-headed from sleep. Unexpectedly, the moment her feet touched the ground, he grabbed the back of her collar and threw her back onto the bed. "Put on your shoes." Just like when they were young, he would always stare at her. Bojo glanced at his face. She bent down and pulled the slippers up. That should be enough. Qin Mo couldn't be bothered with him, heading into the bathroom to wash up. Who knew that the little hooligan would follow behind? When he was squeezing the toothpaste, he didn't even know to roll up his sleeves, wasting his smart face. Bojo noticed the Almighty's gaze and replied calmly, "Brother Mo, the team will be here today, they are all your brothers." Chin Mo squeezed the toothpaste lazily, replying softly, "MH. Let's have a gathering then," Bojo said, reaching for the basin. But Chin Mo was one step ahead, grabbing her hand. His toothbrush was still in his mouth, his expression indifferent. He tilted his head slightly, his fingers rolling up her sleeves. Bojo watched the face under the glow. It was handsome and familiar, perhaps, there wasn't any difference. "If you look at me again and recall the past, I'm going to get angry." Bojo couldn't tell if he was joking or sincere. All she knew was that he reached out, pressing the back of her neck towards him, his voice slow. "Don't you know to roll up your sleeves when washing your face? How old are you?" Bojo's ability to take care of herself wasn't very good. Now that her face had been washed, she couldn't help smiling. The Almighty's tone was filled with disappointment. He was just short of adding little Bojo's name in front. Bojo smiled and drank a glass of milk. The Almighty had also poured the milk for her. He had even tested the temperature with his hand before giving it to her. It was becoming more and more like what he had done when he was young. Bojo was delighted. Her good mood lasted until she sent a message to Lin Feng. The naive Lin Feng was still nervous. "Do you think we should bring something over?" Bojo didn't like typing, so she decided to send a voice message. "We don't lack anything at home. Grandfather Butler made a whole roasted lamb. We can sit around the table and talk while we eat. You guys can train here after you're done eating. There are 13 high-end aliens. It's enough for you guys to play together." After hearing this, Lin Feng turned his head away, his expression a little dazed. Yunhu glanced at him. "Why? Is it inconvenient for Little Spade?" "Very convenient." Lin Feng stood up. "You can go there directly to train, but who would make a whole lamb handcuffed at home?" Chapter 1303. When Lin Feng saw the grandfather butler that Bojo mentioned, he realized that there was really someone who could handcuff a whole lamb at home. At first, when they rang the doorbell, they paused for a moment when they saw the person. Especially Rao Rong, who was standing at the front. Initially, he had a cool posture, but after coming into contact with the old man's face, he paused, apologizing to him in English. Then he turned around and asked Lin Feng, "Are you sure you didn't find the wrong door?" 109. "This is the room." Lin Feng was also puzzled. Why was it a handsome British grandfather who opened the door? Should he send another voice message to ask Little Spade? Just as he was about to pick up his phone, an old man dressed in a well-ironed suit opened his mouth. He was well-mannered like an aristocrat. "Young master is still adjusting the network. Please come in." Rao Rong rubbed his nose in fluent Chinese. Lin Feng's eyes widened even more. Young master? Which era did this term come from? But if it was the network, it had to be Little Spade. All of them looked as if they were sleepwalking. Even Uncle Ian put the cigarette he was about to put in his mouth into his hand. This situation was a little unexpected. Especially the Englishman who was wearing a black apron. His voice was very pleasant. "Today, I have prepared a whole roasted lamb for everyone. Young master said that all of you like meat." Yes, they loved meat. But there was such a huge iron shelf in front of him, and behind him stood a British butler holding a professional knife and fork. This made them a little confused. The room was full of fragrance. Lin Feng could even see the whole goat in the center being shackled to a golden color. Sizzle. 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 The oil was still dripping into the fire. It couldn't be any more fragrant. As for the old man, it was obvious that he was a professional chef. He picked up the machete and cut the sheep a few times. He was skilled and gentlemanly, as if he was performing. Coco touched his chin. This technique. Huh? Shui Yao Yao leaned over, wanting to ask what was wrong. Coco bit the rabbit in his arms. It's so cool. I saw something similar when I was attending the Dubai Princes Conference with my dad. That's why our meal was at the level of a prince. Lin Feng was in a trance. Coco stopped talking. He was smelling the meat. It smelled so good. Roasted whole lamb was different from normal barbecue. The smell of fruit wood mixed with cumin powder burst forth with a fragrance that could instantly make one's stomach growl. Very few people in the family would do that. Unless he went to the Mongolian steppe. Rao Rong wasn't as surprised as before. After all, he had interacted with that person previously. If the other party was only the young master of the Fu family, it would be impossible for him to do this. But that was Z, a world-class hacker. During his time in the dark, he had heard many things about that person. He came from a family of hackers. Its origin was unfathomable. Some people said that Z had the aristocratic bloodline of a 19th-century Oriental and Westerner. However, this had never been confirmed. After all, they did not know whether the person was a man or a woman. If he hadn't interacted with Little Spade, he wouldn't have realized she was Z. Now it seemed that he was really too rich. However, he had never understood. Why was Z always in the Fifth Avenue according to the information they had found? But Little Spade was in Jiang City. None of that mattered now. Chapter 1304. Bo Jio was adjusting the network when she heard the commotion downstairs. She grabbed Qin Mo's hand and walked down the stairs. Probably because her hair had been pressed down when she slept last night, a strand of her silver hair was sticking up. Because she was adjusting the network cable, there was a layer of dust on the tip of her nose. She looked rather handsome. The moment she came down, Lin Feng shouted. Lin Feng let out a cry and opened his arms, wanting to hug her. But before his hand could reach her shoulder, Bo Jio stopped him. Swoosh! A poker card flew over and stabbed him in the shoe. He stomped his feet in pain. F***ck. Where did this poker card come from? Why did it stab me so? Before Lin Feng could finish his sentence, he was rooted to the ground by Qin Mo's gaze. That gaze was deep and unfathomable. It was casual and without a hint of warmth. Lin Feng stilled, calling out in a probing manner, "Captain." Qin Mo smiled. "Sorry, my hand slipped just now." Ow! Lin Feng was suddenly at a loss for words. His captain's politeness was so strange. In the past, when he had been disciplining them, he had never apologized to them. It was normal for him to punish them by not allowing them to eat meat. Those who were familiar with him knew that he would only be so polite to outsiders. Were they outsiders now? Just thinking about this made Lin Feng feel a little uncomfortable. However, it was only for a short while. Nothing was more important than his captain's safe return. The naive Lin Feng believed Qin Mo's words cheerfully. He reached over to place his hand on Bo Jio's shoulder. "Little Spade, I brought a dozen beers. Isn't it nice?" Swoosh! This time, the poker card flew over his head, accurately cutting off his hair. Lin Feng stilled, looking at his captain with a bitter expression. "Did your hand slip again?" "Of course." Qin Mo smiled faintly. "I wanted to stab your hand." Lin Feng turned his head, wanting to complain to his teammates. He hadn't expected Yun Hu to be the only humane one who knew to pull him behind his back. The others only used their gazes to tell him that he deserved it. F***ck. What kind of people were they? Little Spade was even worse. She said with a serious face, "Team Flowerlin, I've wanted to tell you for a long time. I have a family now. Don't touch me all the time. My boyfriend won't be happy. Don't touch me so casually in the future." Lin Feng. "You called me brother. When we were drinking erguotu, you put your arm around my shoulder and said that I was a submissive with no threat. I didn't expect you to be such a little spade." With this commotion, the group of people seemed to be the same as before. Uncle Ian was chuckling with a cigarette in his mouth. Coco and Feng Shang were whispering into each other's ears, while Rao Rong and Lin Chintao were adding the finishing touches. They didn't seem uncomfortable at all. Bo Jio displayed her love with a handsome face, her methods a little shameless. Qin Mo sat beside her lazily, his arm resting on the back of the chair. Even though there wasn't any intimacy, one could feel that the two of them were one, even now. There was a lot of flirtatious talk in the esports circle. Everyone was talking while eating and drinking, and the whole place was filled with laughter. Shui Yaoyao looked at this group of people, her heart heating up. She really felt good, even though she was covered in scars. Chapter 1305. As a qualified butler, of course, the old man sensed the change in Shui Yaoyao's mood. He very considerately passed the napkin over and pushed the dessert forward. He said in a low voice, This is young master's favorite. Paired with lemon tea, it will improve a lady's mood. Shui Yaoyao's eyes widened in shock at his action. She lifted her head and met the youngster's gentle gaze. Now, she finally understood why Her Highness Jiu was so warm. With the old man around, the upbringing was imperceptible. In reality, Shui Yaoyao's thoughts were both right and wrong. If Grandpa Butler knew about this, he would definitely sigh and say with pride and helplessness, "My young master's gentlemanly demeanor is much stronger than the men outside, but I'm clearly teaching her lessons on being a lady." No matter how she looked at it, it was a case of bad upbringing. But in Grandfather Butler's heart, his young lord had always been a rare treasure. That was why he had prepared everything. Lin Feng couldn't help glancing over when he was wiping the cutlery with a white cloth. His posture was so elegant. Where exactly did Little Spade poach him from? He was amazing. Lin Feng couldn't hide his words. He would always ask questions directly. Bo Jiu chuckled. Grandfather Butler was around when I was young, but I don't have the ability to poach him over. Qin Mo nodded. Who else could it be? Lin Feng was confused. It couldn't be the Fu family, right? All right. Bo Jiu placed the cup in her hand down, changing the topic naturally. Brother Mo's hand is healed. Grandfather Butler performed the surgery and it's very flexible now. It doesn't hurt when he twists his wrist. You don't have to worry anymore. She hadn't told anyone about this news. Now it was released. Everyone at the table was stunned for a moment, and then they unconsciously laughed. They were probably too happy. Bo Jiu knew what they were thinking. For the past 3 years, he had been competing with an injured hand. For the sake of Supreme Alliance, he had given up his best position as a jungler and couldn't invade the enemy's jungle as he pleased. It was probably because he was worried that his injury would relapse at a crucial moment and he would lose the competition. He knew Supreme Alliance couldn't leave him, hence, even when the doctor told him to rest for 2 years, he didn't listen. Because everyone knew what 2 years meant in the esports circle. In 2 years, those who said they liked you would fall in love with other teams. In 2 years, an esports player's golden period might be over. 2 years, Supreme Alliance couldn't wait that long. Hence, be it Lin Feng, Yun Hu, or even Feng Yi, they all felt guilty. Countless times, they would think that it would have been great if they could have persevered until that person came back. After realizing that dream, they could have retired. That person would be able to recuperate in peace instead of wasting all of his talent and pride bit by bit like this. Indeed, many people would not understand. How did Feng Yi feel when he saw Spade Z maneuvering the game character and gliding through the wilderness like the wind? It wasn't just the light of Supreme Alliance. At that time, he thought, finally, such a shadow has finally appeared. I can make that person come back. Chapter 1306. Yunhu could tell what was hidden in Lin Feng's eyes. That naive guy's first reaction was to send a message to Feng Yi, who was still in the company. Fox Feng, do you know that Captain's hand has recovered? Ha ha ha, Captain's hand has recovered. If Zhao Sanpang and the others dare to be arrogant in the group again, I'll close the door and release Captain. The Almighties all had their own almighty groups, especially those that were at their level. Yunhu wondered if this person had forgotten that Captain had lost his memory and couldn't play at all. But he didn't stop him, watching as he chatted with Feng Yi, adding, I feel like he can still play for another 10 years. When they gathered together, there seemed to be a kind of strength. They could still be like this, 10 years younger. When Feng Yi saw the WeChat message, he was still dealing with matters online. He hadn't slept for a day and had to drink with the media. His suit jacket hung on his arm, the fatigue of the business world. The little assistant beside him said, Boss Feng, why don't you sleep for a while? We'll keep an eye on them. He held onto his phone and suddenly broke into a smile. She didn't know what he saw. He placed his hand on his neck and pressed it, returning to his smiling fox self. I'll keep an eye on them. Go get some coffee and reward everyone for their hard work before the Asian Cup. The little assistant wanted to say that it wasn't hard, but she sneaked a glance at him. In the past, she didn't understand the concept of an esports company. She thought it was just a simple game where the players just had to compete properly. Now that she was here, she understood. A good team. They didn't just need players to rush forward, they also needed someone to support them from the back. He had to think of everything and take precautions. If he couldn't think of anything, he had to deal with it immediately. Because this was related to the internet, the information spread quickly. It was fine if there was a small conflict, but what he was most afraid of was people distorting the truth. For example now, the person who claimed to be a fan of the team was obstructing the team with every sentence. It was obvious that she didn't want Spade Z to return. Once the public relations department was in charge, she would say that she was disappointed in the team, that her feelings were wasted and that they were all fed to the dogs. If you responded to these things, it would be the team being unreasonable. Feng Yi usually saw such things. He would sit in front of the computer and smoke occasionally. He would control it for a while before returning to the matter at hand. This was the only way Spade Z could come back. Probably because of the good news, the atmosphere at the dining table was good until Rao Rong stood up, looking towards Qin Mo. Since your hand is healed, let's have a match. We can see how well we can cooperate. Lin Feng's hand froze. There was no reply from Coco either. At that moment, the room was extremely quiet. Qin Mo was the only one who was still holding onto a knife and fork. He cut a piece of lamb with a perfect posture and placed it between his lips. After he finished eating, he curved his lips slightly. I'm not interested in games. All of a sudden, the atmosphere around them changed, and it became slightly cold. Lin Feng immediately turned to look at Rao Rong as though to say, "We've already made a deal, why did you change your mind at the last minute?" Chapter 1307. Rao Rong knew that he was the only one who would say such words to Qin Mo. Everyone in Supreme Alliance had been groomed by him, so of course he wouldn't say it. The only one who wasn't afraid of Qin Mo would spoil him to the core. How was he going to change the situation if he didn't interact with him? Besides, it was Qin Mo, he couldn't just say that he wasn't interested. It wasn't just the same team, even his former opponent was waiting for him to display his true abilities in the Asian Cup. If he needed a bad guy, he would be the one. How about it? Rao Rong laughed lightly, continuing, "Do you want to play? Or do you think you're not good enough that you don't even dare to play with me?" As his words fell, the surrounding atmosphere completely dropped to a freezing point. Qin Mo placed his cutlery down, meeting his gaze, his voice calm. "I seem to be looked down upon. How am I going to play?" That's right. Qin Mo didn't even know what it meant to play. "Me, you, Lin Feng, Yun Hu, and Uncle Ian, the five of us will play together and see what results we can achieve." Rao Rong glanced at the youngster. Z doesn't have to participate. Once she enters the game, I'm afraid she will either win or stay by your side to protect you. She won't be able to gauge your current standard. All right. One word. Qin Mo grabbed his jacket and stood up. There was a smile on his lips, but his emotions didn't fluctuate. It was hard to tell if he was happy or angry. There was a huge room upstairs filled with computers, perfect for playing. But Bojio didn't move. Qin Mo glanced at her. "What is it? Are you afraid my fragile heart can't take it?" "No." Bojio stood up. "I was wondering if I could sit beside you when you play. You probably aren't familiar with the character's abilities." When Qin Mo heard this, his eyes finally warmed up a little. This fellow still had a conscience. Wasn't today's show just to get him to play? Qin Mo lowered his head, smirking. When he glanced up, he smiled faintly. "You're my sugar daddy. Where do you want to sit if not beside me?" "My legs?" "There's no need for your legs, it might affect your game," she replied seriously. Lin Feng was about to vomit blood when he heard this. "You're just going to sit if it doesn't affect your game?" Also, what was the term sugar daddy? "Little Spade, do you still want Captain to call you daddy? What did you say to Captain when he lost his memory?" Lin Feng wanted to have a good talk with Little Spade, but his captain was guarding against him like a wolf. It really hurt his heart. However, it wasn't easy for them to sit together and play together again. Everyone was a little excited. Yao Yao, Lin Chintao, and the others also turned on their computers. Rao Rong sat there, placing the earpiece on his head. "I'm the mid lane." "Top lane." Uncle Ian still had a cigarette in his mouth. Lin Feng chose a healer support. "I'll use this to practice. I'll play the ad carry." Yun Hu tilted his head, scanning the situation online. They all use large sizes. The impact of using a main account was that once you went online, you would immediately be targeted by a large number of fans. Usually, just one person alone could cause a shockwave. Now that the four of them had come online at the same time, it was like a bomb had been thrown into the air, blowing up the entire game's fairness. Chapter 1308. When Qin Mo's game ID appeared in everyone's line of sight. The entire internet seemed to have paused for 0.1 seconds. Then, it really exploded. The public chat exploded with messages. Oh! Screams filled the entire game. My almighty Qin! What did I see? My almighty Qin! I can't take it anymore, calm down. Let me take another look. Oh my god! It's really my almighty Qin! I jumped off the bed excitedly and ran 3 rounds downstairs. There's a surprise online today. What? Almighty Qin is back? Where? Click on the Almighty's view. The first room shows Almighty Qin and his team. F***CK, Black 5. I can't believe I'll be able to see this in my lifetime. Don't stop me, I want to see my husband. The game hadn't started and Qin Mo was still choosing his character. It wasn't just here, even the official Weibo was bombarded. No matter what Black 5 said, he was disappointed. But there was one thing, the popularity of the official Weibo didn't decrease at all. Every esports team knew what the name Qin Mo represented. It was the time when they didn't know his background and wanted to poach him over, but he refused to leave, choosing the small manager, Feng Yi. All the businessmen knew that it was a hot topic, traffic, popularity, and godly operating skills that no one could surpass. He wasn't a celebrity. But he was more popular than a celebrity. Many people couldn't catch up to him. The popularity continued to rise. It was the same for the number of spectators. Why hasn't Almighty Qin chosen his character? The jungler's position is empty. Almighty Qin will definitely do it. I have a feeling that I'll be crying because of my husband's cool maneuvering. But this time, Qin Mo took way too long to choose his character. Lin Feng tilted his head and glanced over. His captain held the mouse in one hand and asked the youngster beside him casually, "Which character did you choose previously? Do you want to use the one I used?" Bojo chuckled. She turned her body and held onto the mouse through his hand. Her breath was seductive. This is the most handsome assassin in Hero. He's dressed in white and has a long sword in his hand. His movements are graceful and when he's powerful, he can turn the whole place upside down. Many girls like him and they call him hubby or little brother in private. You like it too? Qin Mo clicked confirm while asking a certain someone absent-mindedly. What's there to like about a fake character? Bojo held her cheeks and smiled devilishly. I like it. Really? Qin Mo had the urge to change this character and choose a new one. His thin lips were a little cold. He didn't look handsome at all. He was just a pretty boy with a wine flask hanging on his waist. He looked sloppy. Previously, he had thought that although the prey he had his eyes on didn't have any obvious advantages, he had a good eye. Now, it seemed that his foresight wasn't that great. Unexpectedly, before he could finish his thoughts, the youngster's voice came from the other side. The youngster's voice came from the other side of the phone again. Her breath was very close to him, as if she was speaking beside his ear. It was hot and ticklish. Brother Mo, you're the best at playing him. Honestly, in the entire game, he's the only one who looks especially handsome when you're playing him. Chapter 1309. Bojo ignored Lin Feng's resentful gaze and focused on the screen. The game had begun. 5 seconds later, everyone walked out of the spring, including Qin Mo. Since they were all using their main accounts in the arena, according to the rules of the game, the opponents were all high-leveled players. This meant that even though they weren't professional players, their maneuvers were at the standard of an almighty. Being able to reach the same level as Lin Feng and the others meant that they were really good. However, the opponents hadn't expected to be matched with the professional Black 5. At the start, they hadn't noticed the nicknames. After all, there was only one principle when they played. Regardless of who they were facing, the most important thing was to raise their stars. Hence, When they entered the game and saw the number of spectators, they paused. F***ck, it can't be? Quan, did you start a live stream? No, I didn't invite you guys to live stream. Then why? Maybe it's because of the opponents. Opponents? Look at their ID. Supreme Alliance's group? I'm going crazy. What are you going crazy for? Didn't you see the comments online? Qin Mo probably won't be able to participate in the Asian Cup with that hand of his. He probably isn't in a good condition. That's why he hasn't appeared for such a long time. He's such a good team, but he didn't follow the wishes of his fans. Quan, from your tone, you don't like them? I used to be a fan, but now, I'm not interested. I do like Supreme Alliance, don't use such a tone. What's wrong with my tone? Supreme Alliance should learn from me. Listen to the words of the fans. What's wrong with creating a group? Look at how many I have. That's enough, the game has begun. Think about how to play. While they were chatting, everyone went to their respective positions. Quan was also a jungler, using the same character as Qin Mo. He had liked him from the start, but after he started a live stream, he had gained fans. He had wanted to gain some popularity, but Supreme Alliance didn't give him any benefits. The more he looked at him, the more he disliked him. He wasn't the only jungler in the world. There should be more people who knew how to play this character. He had only entered the industry a few years earlier and was hyped up by his fans to be a god. If he was given the same opportunity, he wouldn't be bad either. As Quan thought about it, he began to plan something. Didn't they say that he was in a bad state? Then he would make use of this opportunity to test him. If he was really weak, he would only catch him. In reality, Quan was still afraid of Qin Mo's name. It could be said that all his jungling techniques were learned from Qin Mo's videos. But he believed in the principle of the student surpassing the master. As long as they planned it well, coupled with that person's condition, they would be able to make a name for themselves. The more Quan thought about it, the more he felt that it was a good idea. For the sake of future publicity, he even pressed the record button on the top right corner. Their chances of winning this match were not very certain. The few of them couldn't defeat Supreme Alliance. However, it was not impossible to capture only one person. At that time, no matter what the result of the competition was, as long as he released the title of Exploding Almighty Qin, his popularity would naturally follow suit. If the fans were not satisfied, he would apologize again. Chapter 13:10. Someone once said that there were two things in this world that shouldn't be looked at directly: the sun and the human heart. The actions of a black-hearted person were basically the same. In order to gain attention, Quan wasn't aware of how vicious his plan was. The more he thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. His long sword struck the blue buff over and over again, ready to harvest it. But he realized that the buff had been snatched a second earlier. Snatched? Quan's fingers stilled, his entire being riled up. F***ck. His teammates hadn't been aware of the situation. But when they glanced up and saw the white figure, they understood. The buff had been snatched by Almighty Qin. Ha ha ha, my heart aches for the assassin. After fighting for so long, my Almighty Qin took everything away with a single strike. Your wilderness is my home. I'm not saying this for nothing. Stealing the blue buff right off the bat, it's indeed Almighty Qin's style. The public chat was full of praise. It was a slap to Quan's face. He had wanted to crush Qin Mo, but the moment he entered the arena, he was going to be crushed. Lin Feng was puzzled. Didn't Captain lose his memory and was unable to play? How did he manage to steal the blue buff? In a high-level match, everyone knew that it wasn't easy to steal mana, unless you could accurately calculate the HP of the blue buff. After all, the opponent wasn't an idiot. It would be too easy to steal mana just because you said so. What happened? Lin Feng asked Bo Jiu. Little Spade, are you lying to us? Actually, Captain is still good at playing, he just doesn't flaunt it. He used to be like that too. Bo Jiu remained silent. Yunhu spoke up. Lin Feng, Almighty Lin, please look at this weak ADC. Your support, why are you looking at the assassin instead of me? The moment Yunhu finished his sentence, he blocked the opponent's top laner between the walls. With a ferocious attack, The opponent fled back to the tower. The spectators were from Supreme Alliance's side, hence, they could hear their conversation. Lin Feng's lips twitched. How are you weak? If you're more serious, you can even kill the top laner. That's right, that's right. Almighty Yun, you're so weak that the opponent's top laner is starting to doubt his life. The fans immediately followed suit. What do you guys know? God Yun is acting like a spoiled child. How can an ad carry leave his support? So gay. Sigh, even a straight man like me is about to become gay. Shui Yaoyao looked at the words on the public screen and wanted to laugh. These fans were too cute. There was probably only one person who couldn't laugh. It was Coco. He knew his captain's maneuvers the best. That person used to sit casually in front of the computer, smoking while controlling the character to move forward nimbly. Wherever he went, not even a blade of grass would grow. After killing the wild, he still had the time to stretch out his hand to press down on his own neck. His positioning was so awesome that it was dazzling. But now, although he successfully stole the opponent's wild monster, he also plundered a lot of money. However, whether it was in terms of positioning or maneuvering, they were all too slow. It wasn't like him. The others in the team didn't notice because they were also playing the game. As a spectator, all of his attention was locked on his captain. The more he watched, the tighter he bit the rabbit ears in his arms. His heart trembled slightly. Even the air he exhaled was cold. Little Spade wasn't lying. Chapter 13:11. Coco tilted his head, glancing towards her. Little Spade must have noticed the problem. But why wasn't there any emotion on her face? She just sat there, a smile hanging on her lips as she watched her captain maneuver his character. Occasionally, she would overhear their conversation. What's his big move? He can seduce people. He's a tank. Does he have high HP? MMH. If we don't kill him, we still have to find a pushover. The last sentence was from their captain, his voice calm, as though he was teaching on the spot. Little Spade held her chin, her words unscrupulous. MMH. We'll find a pushover. Coco. These two are really... Coco didn't manage to express his sorrow, it was washed away by the shameless display of affection. On the other hand, Rao Rong, who was in the middle lane, paused. He switched to the small map and zoomed in, taking in the entire wilderness. Because he had to face an enemy, he didn't take a closer look at Qin Mo's movements. But one thing was obvious. Qin Mo's farming speed. It was so slow that Rao Rong's fingers paused. Any assassin in their profession would have cleared all the beasts in their own wilderness by now. Not to mention Qin Mo, who was faster than everyone else in terms of farming speed. It wasn't just because of his positioning, but also because he was clear about the intervals between the appearance of the beasts and the recovery time of his skills. In the entire circle, he was the only one who could use them flexibly. The title of MVP wasn't just for show. When he was farming, he could use his skills to walk. Anyone who played this game knew that money determined equipment and equipment determined your damage. The person who could farm the money the fastest would have the highest damage. That way, they would be able to finish off their opponent with one set of skills. Hence, time was extremely important in this game. Right now, even though Qin Mo's farming speed was faster than the average player, at his current level, he wasn't even a tenth of his usual skills. His positioning was erratic. Perhaps his instincts wouldn't allow him to degenerate into a noob who couldn't even use the mouse. But it was obvious that he had forgotten the consciousness of a jungler. What should an assassin do at this moment? He didn't know. Consciousness was a mysterious thing. Everyone's jungling style was different. Little Spade was also a jungler. Both of them were very skilled, leaving nothing behind wherever they went. But the feeling they gave off was different. There was a saying that an assassin did not fight to see who was more reckless, but to see who was more conscious. If one's awareness was good, even if the overall situation was against them, one could rely on commanding the battle and the assassin to lead the tempo to victory. If one's awareness wasn't good, not only would he fail to kill his opponent, he would also be suppressed and beaten. Especially in a high-end game like this. The moment Rao Rong had this thought, a figure appeared at the river in the jungle. It was the enemy's assassin. His fingers paused. He had wanted to immediately go over to help. A good mid laner would be able to coordinate with the mid laner. Not to mention Rao Rong, who had the nickname of Team Control. However, he seemed to have thought of something. He didn't move. Instead, he stood there and looked in the direction of the person in white. A faint light flashed in his eyes. Qin Mo, let me see if you still know what you have to do as an assassin in the wilderness. Chapter 13:12. For an assassin, the most important thing was to avoid danger, stand at the starting point, and counterattack. That was once your forte. How much do you remember now? Rao Rong glanced up, his eyes glistening. It was time to stop running. On the other side, Qin Mo was still fighting the wild beasts. All of a sudden, his fingers paused. He seemed to have an innate sensitivity towards danger. He controlled his character and moved towards the bushes below. On the other side of the screen, Quan sneered. Trying to escape? With that, he pressed the button to attack, using a skill to invade. She wanted to hit Qin Mo directly. When the people saw the recording, they would be able to tell whose technique was better. Unexpectedly, that person's body moved to the side, and he actually managed to evade his sword. Quan's face heated up, as though he had been punched. But it didn't matter, he wasn't the only one here. Quan turned on the voice message. Kill him. Swoosh. Another person's figure appeared as well. Unexpectedly, after Qin Mo blocked Rao Rong's attack, he shifted, his long sword by his side, temporarily leaving the enemy's line of sight. Even the second person that charged over wasn't able to catch him. But this time, it wasn't to snatch the beasts. He was killing. Because the third person had appeared. The control sorcerer. With a turn of his body, he stunned the hero that Qin Mo was controlling. This was the first time Qin Mo saw this character, hence, he wasn't sure of its attributes. He had assumed he could use the skill to shift back, but the opponent's control was marked, leaving him no room to dodge. Quan saw that Qin Mo was frozen, his smile widening. He repeated, "Kill him." The tank followed up with a beheading skill. In an instant, Qin Mo's HP was low. He tilted, about to enter the defense tower. Quan chased after him, using a big move to take him away. But at that moment, Qin Mo turned around and raised his long sword. With 3 swishing sounds, the silver light fell. Hound, who was at full health, lost half of it. Quan retracted his hand in shock. Qin Mo hadn't escaped. But he wouldn't be able to live either. That person had set up an electric formation for him before he died. Quan shrieked in fear. Save me! The support at the side quickly cast a heal, taking advantage of his last breath to heal him. That was how he managed to escape death. There weren't 3 of them, there were 4. 4 of them to capture a jungler? Did they not care about anything else? What kind of strategy was this? Soon, Quan gave his answer. Afraid that no one could hear him, he typed a string of words on the public chat. Almighty Qin? Almighty? Almighty Qin, if you're old, you should retire early. Don't always use your hand injury as an excuse. If you can't even beat me, why are you participating in the Asian Cup? If I were you, I would give the newbies a chance so that they won't be able to perform well and affect their reputation. You might even drag the Supreme Alliance down with you. Let me make this clear, I don't mean to insult you. Your fans are too scary, so don't come and tear me apart. Hee hee. This was undoubtedly a challenge. Important. Everyone who saw this understood why the other side had sent 4 people to catch a jungler. Chapter 13:13. Who is he? How shameless. What do you mean Almighty Qin can't even beat him? There were 4 of them trying to capture one person. I just want to ask that Quan guy. Did you just get healed by your team support? Let's see if you'll die without him. F***ck, my temper is so bad. I can't take it anymore. How could someone say such a thing? There's no need to continue watching. The game is about to end. Supreme Alliance is going to win. Indeed, it was about to end. The other side didn't care about anything. Before Lin Feng and Yun, who knew what was happening, they had already attacked the other side's base. The next moment, they saw the words on the public screen. Lin Feng clicked on the mouse, preparing to run back. But before he could reach, Rao Rong turned. Using his passive skill and displacement, he reaped the harvest in an instant, leaving behind the sound of 4 consecutive kills. Lin Feng and the others didn't even need to attack the enemy's base. It was already occupied by the troops. Quan glanced at the words on the public screen, tapping the keyboard. Why are you still arguing? Didn't we agree to not argue? Qin fans are said to have high standards, but why can't I tell? Even though we lost, we were able to torture our almighty Qin. That's good enough. F***CKU. Lin Feng really didn't care about anything else and directly cursed in the game. In that instant, Rao Rong regretted it. He hadn't expected such a person. By the time he reacted, it was already too late. But it was already done. Bo Jiu knew Rao Rong's method wasn't wrong. The Almighty's maneuvers were much better than when he had watched her play yesterday. But there wasn't enough time. He hadn't even understood some of the opponent's skills. There were 4 of them and every move was targeted at him. If it was the old him. Bo Jiu shifted her gaze, landing on his handsome side profile. This was the first time she felt her throat tighten. It was so tight that it felt as though something was about to spill out. The atmosphere in the computer room was at its lowest point. Qin Mo waved his hand, seemingly emotionless. He glanced down at the mouse he had been holding before glancing up at the character lying in the game. There was a moment of pause. The indignation in his heart was too familiar. It was so familiar, as though he had experienced it before. Lin Feng couldn't suppress his anger at all. Everyone knew that this wasn't the time to curse. Once a public figure cursed, there would be a lot of negative news. Even if you didn't do anything wrong. Some passers-by would also wonder why he had such an image. Not to mention those who didn't like him in the first place. They would seize this opportunity to add fuel to the fire. Quan was such a person. The moment he heard Lin Feng curse, he exclaimed, "That's scary. Why are the Almighties of Supreme Alliance cursing?" Enough. It was his teammates who stopped him. After all, it was not right to speak like this. Quan didn't think that he had done anything wrong. After all, he was already dead, and the crystal base was almost gone. He seized the time to say one last sentence. If you don't know how to jungler, then don't. If your hand speed can't keep up, then leave quickly. As soon as he finished speaking, the crystal completely exploded, and the screen was filled with silver flowers that scattered everywhere. They had clearly won, but no one could be happy. At this moment, his heart would always soften. I don't want to fight. If you keep looking at the game and keep looking at me, how are you going to fight? Qin Mo followed the strength of her hand and sat down, his breath hitting her face. His eyes were half black as though he was saying, "This idiot." Once the Almighty sat beside her, she didn't get distracted. This game had to be watched by him, otherwise, she wouldn't be able to get over the hurdle in her heart. Chapter 13-15. Quan didn't know that the Qin fan he was about to cripple was actually Spade Z. While doing the live stream, he said, "At this level, I'll just continue to play the game character. I can win any time I want." Quan's words made many Qin fans feel disgusted, as though they had swallowed a fly. But they couldn't speak. The Asian Cup was about to begin, they couldn't just charge in and tear him apart because that would only increase his popularity. As a fan, what he was most worried about was the person who was about to fight against Hound. They hoped to help Almighty Qin vent his anger and teach him a good lesson. But the difference in their levels was too huge. Would he be alright? Just as the fans were thinking about it, the game had begun. They also noticed that both sides had chosen the same character. Almighty Qin's best hero. Quan sneered. "He's overestimating himself. After I use the blue buff, I'll send him back to the spring." Quan's speed wasn't bad. His moves were copied from Almighty Qin's previous videos. With a skill, he teleported to the jungle, starting from the blue buff. The more the fans watched, the more flustered they became. They had chosen Quan's perspective, and when they saw his maneuvering, their hearts sank. But right at this moment, a white figure darted in like the wind. First, he used a jungling skill to take away the blue buff, followed by a movement, the damage landing on Quan. He used a lightning strike to slow him down, his long sword sweeping across, not intending to leave after stealing the beasts. This person. He isn't just trying to steal the beasts. Steal the beasts? Bo Jiu pressed the tip of her tongue against her chin, a smile on her face, but Coco couldn't sense any warmth from her. Her right hand held onto the mouse, her left hand moving so quickly that it was hard to see. On the screen, the figure in the white robe didn't retreat when he encountered the defense tower. Instead, he chased after Hound, who had low HP, and raised his long sword. He's trying to? A tower kill. Isn't it too early? Is he going to trade a life for a life? Quan hadn't expected this person to be so fierce. He turned around and cast a movement speed debuff on his opponent, intending to use a sliver of his HP to counterattack. However, that person seemed to have predicted his movements in advance. With a nimble curve, he dodged his attack and entered his body like the wind. Kill. 1 blood. Listening to the exciting sound effects, the fans watching the live broadcast all widened their eyes. Quan was so angry that he blurted out, "You can't escape either." One must know that the attack power of the defense tower was also very strong. But who knew? In the next second, the figure flashed out of the tower and returned to the blue buff. Teleport. Damn, he's so handsome. What a coquettish move. Oh my god. My maiden heart is about to explode. A certain host has been slapped in the face this time. I can't help but be impressed by that move. Quan could see the comments. He thought that he would be able to perish together, but he didn't expect such an outcome. If he couldn't even beat Qin Mo's fans, how was he going to explain himself? No, he had to think of a way. I was smoking just now. I never expected Almighty Qin's fans to be so good at sneak attacks. I have to fight properly. Quan acted as though nothing had happened, continuing to operate his character. He could see the small map of the game. In his opinion, this fan was too arrogant. He didn't leave after killing him and was still clearing the beasts in his jungle. He hadn't put up any defenses, which was why he had succeeded. This time, he only had half his HP left. He must have absorbed all his HP from the beasts. Damn it. But it didn't matter. Soon, he would make him regret his actions. Quan raised his sword and headed for the figure. The fans couldn't help but shout, "Danger!" The figure, who was still killing the beasts, didn't seem to notice them as he continued to slash the beasts with his sword. Once, twice, thrice. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. They couldn't even bear to see the figure being killed. But in the next second, the entire live stream room seemed to have frozen. They watched as the figure swung his sword in a reverse grip on the third time. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. With 3 swishing sounds, the screen was filled with silver flowers. Quan's pupils constricted and he wanted to retreat. He hadn't expected the other party to be so fast. His finances were double his. His first move was a big move. No, I can't fight. That was what Quan was thinking. However, this game wasn't something he could stop just because he said so. He allowed him to use teleportation to return to his original position. The figure seemed to have predicted where he would land, turning around with the mouse. With a sweep of his sword, he set up an electric formation. The Quan that was caught threw the mouse to the ground. He couldn't avoid it. He couldn't avoid it at all. This person was like a ghost. What the hell? The music blared once more. Anyone who knew how to play would know that it was hard for an assassin to remember after being caught twice. Quan's eyes dimmed and he was about to speak. However, the person in front of him was one step ahead, typing. This is my almighty Qin's maneuvers. Of course, I'm still lacking compared to him. But Mr. Quan, compared to you who only imitated a tenth of it, Daddy is fully qualified to send you back to the spring. His words were so domineering that the entire computer room was cheering. Lin Feng was the most agitated, waving his hands. Little spade. Hammer. Hammer with all your might. Smash that bastard. Senior Lin, Team Flower Lin. Bo Jiu tilted her head. Lin Feng didn't care about the name anymore. Why? Continue hammering. Move aside. You're blocking my boyfriend's view. I'm taking revenge for him. Bo Jiu's voice was calm as she typed, her fingers long and beautiful. Lin Feng, That's right, move aside. Don't block, Captain. Coco inched forward, trying to leave a good impression in front of his captain. This person isn't sensible. Qin Mo paused for a moment, his thin lips lifting as he nodded. Coco was moved. Was Captain responding to him? Sob sob sob. It wasn't easy. Lin Feng. F***ck. He couldn't stay in this team anymore. No one bothered about him except for Yun Hu, who pulled him over. The others were still focused on the screen. As a live streamer, it was impossible for Quan not to react. Who are you calling an imposter? You just killed him twice and you're making things up? Everyone is playing the same hero and has the same skills. Why would I need to imitate anyone? Bo Jiu didn't forget to reply. Whether it's an imposter or not, everyone can tell from his attire. Don't you have any idea? Also, you said I only killed you twice? Hehe. Chapter 13:16. The entire live stream room could see the message. Of course, they found him handsome. But at the same time, most of them noticed Quan's actions. This Quan was purposely conversing with the other party to distract the other party's attention. Now that Quan wasn't speaking, he had made use of the time he was busy typing to sneak over from the other side of the river, hiding in the bushes. Quan's smile was sinister. I'll kill you every time I go out? I'll let everyone see how I'm going to slap your face. Quan wasn't in a hurry, he was just making sure. He waited for the person to stop, for the time when there was nothing left to hit. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. He hit the soldier 3 times, and then suddenly rushed up. He wasn't slow. A big move landed on Bo Jiu. In the blink of an eye, Bo Jiu was left with less than a third of her HP. F***ck, isn't he shameless? Lin Feng was an experienced gamer. With just one look, he could tell what he was up to. Little Spade had just finished typing and he was already charging forward. It was obviously a dirty move. Everyone assumed the person was going to die. They couldn't see the youngster in front of the computer moving her right hand swiftly, back and forth, drawing a letter on the mouse pad. See. But it was precisely this kind of movement that allowed her in-game character to perfectly evade all of the opponent's attacks. Quan was taken aback by the back-and-forth movement. He had wanted to predict his opponent's movements, but now he couldn't. Unexpectedly, the person seemed to be escaping. Escaping? That would be easy. Quan chuckled as he charged forward once more, about to catch up. Unexpectedly, the person dodged to the left, entering the defense tower. He was already at a sliver of HP. How could Quan allow him to escape? He had to take this HP. What he didn't expect was that the moment he entered the pagoda, the figure raised his sword, turned around, and enlarged himself. F***ck. That was Quan's first reaction. He dragged the mouse and retreated hurriedly. He had expected to reach the end. But the defense tower. He still had to endure the damage from the defense tower. He could escape. He would definitely be able to escape. He had been so focused on escaping that he had forgotten about his movement skill. The defense tower and the little soldier's damage reached its target. Quan fell to the ground. The game music played once more. The third time. This was already the third time. The fans watching the live broadcast were so excited that they wished they could run a few laps. But do you think this is the end? No. Because the silver-haired youth sitting in front of the computer leisurely typed a line of words. Do you find this scene very familiar? Familiar? How is he familiar? The fans were confused. But this didn't stop the smart ones from immediately grasping the main point of this sentence. Go. It was the same scene when he fought with Almighty Qin. Ah! I remember now. The last one, the last one. What do you mean by the previous round? Before anyone could explain, someone else said, if you didn't have the support to heal you in the last round, the one who died wouldn't have been my Almighty Qin, but you. Wah! It's really because of the last round. Wait a minute. Does this mean that this person purposely let his HP drop to critical levels and then lure a certain streamer into the defense tower just to recreate that scene and help Almighty Qin vent his anger? Chapter 13:17. A normal professional player wouldn't be able to do it, but if it's that person. It's possible. Fans who often watched the league knew who that person was talking about. Among the junglers on the national server, other than Almighty Qin, there was only one person who could achieve such an effect. The FC King of Zone C, Spade Z. Although that person hadn't appeared for a long time. But the players still remembered the first time they saw that person. That was how she was, using a lower-level account to kill a higher-level opponent. Every round, she would bring the team to victory. Even now it was still the same. Cough, what should we do? The CP fans are imagining things again. This isn't about the CP fans, right? This is obviously the girlfriend taking revenge for her boyfriend. I'm guessing someone is definitely trying to make Almighty Qin happy. Look up at the sky. This display of affection is really admirable. Wait a minute, look at that person's ID, little sweetheart Qin is mine. I seem to have found out about a huge secret. My boyfriend saw you acting coquettishly just now and he's beside me now. He's jealous and I have to think of a way to make him happy? So Almighty Qin is sitting beside someone? The above commenter is the truth. Aya, as a boyfriend he doesn't waste any words, he's going to catch him in the jungle. At this moment, Bo Jio saw the conversation on the public chat. Her fingers paused and she turned towards the Almighty seriously. Brother Mo, the whole world knows that I like you. MH. When he raised his hand, he was still smiling. His hand landed on the youngster's furry head, feeling the warmth of his palm. He actually felt happy. Bo Jio took the chance to flirt. Look, I told you I wasn't lying to you, yet you're always on guard against me. In the past, you always wanted to marry me. When are you going to fulfill that promise? Don't keep dragging me. Don't you know that chasing a girl can't be dragged out? Lin Feng and Coco were the closest to the two of them. When they heard the young man's casual words, their eyes widened like lanterns hanging outside. They looked at each other, their expressions and actions expressing the same meaning. F***CK, Little Spade really did everything to get Captain's love. How could he say such shameless words? Lin Feng was the first to react. He turned to Bo Jio and cupped his fists. He was impressed. Bo Jio waved her hand calmly, smiling mischievously as a reply. It wasn't a big deal. I really can't compare. I can't compare. Lin Feng clutched his chest as if he had suffered a heavy blow. I finally know why I haven't been able to find a girlfriend for so many years. It's all because I'm too thin-skinned. I can't even compare to a girl. As he said this, someone responded to him. You still want to find a girlfriend? It was Yun Hu. He looked at him, a hint of coldness in his ink-black eyes. Lin Feng felt his scalp go numb from being stared at. He coughed lightly and said casually, I'm just giving an example. Chapter 13:18. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Then he seemed to have recalled something. His fingers turning cold and flustered. He shifted his gaze. F***CK, don't joke around. Yun Hu's eyes dimmed. He didn't say anything but his expression didn't change. Qin Mo tapped the youngster's cheek. What do you think will happen if you drag this on? Like me being sad or something, Bo Jio replied. Qin Mo arched a brow. I made you sad? Bo Jio took a moment, feeling troubled. She hadn't. But before she could reply, the Almighty added. Even if you're sad, I can comfort you. MMH? Bo Jio heard it. Even though it was faint and slightly arrogant, she wanted to hear it again. The Almighty was comforting her? Qin Mo watched his clear eyes. Just as he was about to speak, a cold sneer came from the live stream. I was wondering who it was. So it's that androgynous person who disguised himself as a man in order to attract fans. Now, he's here to cause trouble for me. What's the point? No one wants to see you in the competition. Supreme Alliance too, they have so many Almighties but instead, they have a troublemaker by their side. Pfft. The pfft caused Qin Mo's gaze to turn cold. Lin Feng was the first to react. F***CK. This person is asking for a beating. This time, Bo Jio remained silent. Qin Mo tilted, his right hand reaching over to snatch the keyboard in front of her. Brother Mo? Bo Jio tilted her head. That person's slender and good-looking fingers typed a string of words on the screen. Now let this boyfriend of mine fight you. You shouldn't be afraid. After all, you just killed me last time. That sentence caused a commotion in the live stream room. Boyfriend of this account. Boyfriend of this account. Almighty Qin. Ah, my almighty Qin. What's going on? Almighty Qin is going up? Even though I'm happy that almighty Qin is going up, he isn't in a good state. The previous round? Quan glanced at the bullet screen before glancing down at the bottom of the screen. His lips curved into a mocking smile. Against the FC King, he might be caught and beaten up. But against Qin Mo, who wasn't in the same state as before, he was very confident. Almighty Qin is here? It seems like the rumors are true. Almighty Qin is willing to sacrifice Supreme Alliance's reputation for Spade Z. Since the Almighty is so passionate, I have no choice but to accept your challenge. Let's not fight for mana anymore. Let's fight in the middle lane. What do you think? Soon, the other side replied with one word. Clean and efficient. All right. Coco looked at the word good and couldn't help but worry. Lin Feng felt the same way. These fans might not know. The captain wasn't in a bad state. Instead, he had lost all memories of the game. If you look at him from the perspective of a rookie, he had only played the game for 2 days. 2 days. Was it really possible? A 1v1 like this? Coco wanted to move, but Rao Rong, who was standing beside him, pressed him down and said in a low voice, "Look again." For the last time. If he was serious, what would he be like? You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.